Welcome back to new, bigger, better studio on the way next week with multi-cameras. Ooh. But I will miss this place, this pink lair. We call this the living womb. Because it's pink. Yeah, no, unsub. Yep. The Italians are making moves. Quick, get Calafiori in his underwear. As of recording, Arsenal are in advanced talks to bring Napoli's head of scouting into a senior position within the recruitment team. Micheli has been scouting for Napoli as far back as 2010, having previously held positions at Udinese and Brescia. He left Naples in 2015 to take up a position at Verona and Bologna before returning in 2018 as head of scouting back at Napoli. The story was first broken by Sami Mokbel of the BBC, and there's no confirmation as of yet while recording on Arsenal.com, but you suspect that's relatively close, as Fabrizio Romano said, agreed. By all accounts, Micheli, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, has a great reputation in Italy, and especially at Napoli. He's been credited as a large part of their recent success. He was there as part of 2 Serie A title wins in 22-23 and 24-25, and has been a part of Napoli's return to a consistent UEFA Champions League club during his time there. It's not being reported yet where exactly Micheli will fit in the structure. Even Mr. Ruin Everyone's Fun said just part of the recruitment team. But with the current football structure looking a little something like this, as far as I can tell, Berta as sporting director, Arteta as manager, James Ellis as technical director, having been promoted from head of recruitment in the summer without being replaced, as far as I know, I suspect Micheli is the replacement as the new head of recruitment or head of scouting. So that's all lovely, but what, we analyse scouts now? Just sign the highest rated card on FIFA, mate. Stop overthinking it. Joking aside, I think there is some analytical juice to get out of this, and 3 key points that I want to address. Firstly, him, his record, his methods, and so on. Secondly, what he'll actually be able to do in this role, the trust and relationships that he'll have. And finally, what I think Arsenal and the hierarchy here are trying to address with this appointment. If all 3 are aligned, I think this could be a lot more significant than we might think.
Hold up, wait a minute.
Nico, Dino, Vini, Gundo, you passed the ball to find there. In football, we're always on about covering space well. And the thing is, online, your data, your history, your identity, they need covering too. And that is where today's sponsor and my mates at Surfshark come in. Listen, using the web without having a VPN is like walking around the Emirates without any trousers on. Respect, but don't do it. Who am I? You ready? Oh, why should I use Surfshark? Oh, what's the point of a VPN? I'm you. Because when you're watching a match or arguing the media's bias against Arsenal based off one tweet or whatever you do in your spare time, I don't know, you might be on public Wi-Fi in a cafe or an airport or using a shared device and your data's at risk. Surfshark encrypts your connection to make sure you're not exposed to any trackers or hackers at all. But not only that, it blocks ads, it stops location-based price discrimination, and means you can access content from any country no matter where you are in the world.
But I've heard one account covers every device, laptop, phone and tablet. That can't be true, can it?
It can. One account, unlimited devices. Maybe you're traveling for away games, you want to watch something in a hotel room abroad, Surfshark has you covered. With Surfshark, you can pick from a massive range of servers from around the globe and watch your usual streaming services or use your banking apps with no risk. Look, I don't know about you, but I like my trousers, and we all deserve online trousers as well. And Surfshark makes it easy. So head to surfshark.com/TDK or use code TDK at checkout and you get 4 months extra of Surfshark on me, plus a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you don't like it, get your money back, mate. More than you believe. Thank you so much to Surfshark for sponsoring The Different Knock. All right, we're back. You may remember this bloke, Matteo Tognossi. Back in June, and crucially before James Ellis was actually promoted, it was reported Arsenal were in advanced talks for Tognossi to join the recruitment team. I remember at the time being quite excited because he'd been credited with unearthing the likes of Dean Huijsen and Kenan Yildiz for Juventus' next-gen team. And I was having dreams of Kenan in an Arsenal shirt. But it all sort of went quiet. Well, there were some alleged old tweets, which I can't verify, but you have Google. But realistically, we don't know. He's now the sporting director at Rio Ave in Portugal, one of Mr. Marinakis' group of clubs. So, thank you, Mr. Marinakis, for the opportunity to say your name in a video. But I mention that as proof that regardless of Ellis's promotion, or indeed Mark Curtis's promotion to head of football intelligence, based on my LinkedIn stalking, Arsenal have evidently been after a new type of expertise in their recruitment department for a while. And by looking at some of the overlapping qualities between Tognossi and Micheli, I think we can begin to see what it might be. It's all very well saying someone has an eye for talent. I would hope every scout at the top level has an eye for talent. But clubs and recruitment teams have types, players that tend to do quite well for them. So I wanted to look past the kind of headlines into Napoli's record while Miceli was there to do some pattern spotting. And a deeper look shows they historically do very well with, and I'm going to say this carefully, clever punts between about 10 and 30 million euros, and particularly with midfielders. Napoli have a huge recruitment team like any other club. It's hard to lay it all at Miceli's lovely Italian loafers. But if it's not causation, considering he is head of scouting, there's at least correlation. Now, before I give the examples, you could say, well, of course, Napoli thrive at that level. That's the level they're shopping at. They've only been over that fee about 5 or 6 times, and fair enough. But if it's that easy, where's Atalanta's league titles, or Lazio's, or Roma's, or all the other clubs in every other league with a similar budget? They pick well. Napoli's average spend last 6 windows is 131 million euros per window, and they consistently sell really well as well. They're a Champions League club with budget to play with, having won leagues, who have shown they will go over and above for certain players at times, like Lozano and Osimhen. They had record profits in 22-23. They have money. They just spend it well. All the numbers are from Transfermarkt and are in euros. There's the headlines. Koulibaly was 7.75 million from Genk, Kvaratskhelia was 13.3 million from Dinamo Batumi, and Kim Min-jae from Fenerbahce was 19 million. All of which are excellent business, but there's many, many more that I haven't really seen being spoken about. Take Alan, Brazilian midfielder, the bloke who played for Everton, signed from Miceli's previous club, Udinese, in 2015, which tells me who might have been behind this, just before he left Napoli that first time for 11.5 million. Market value peaks at 60 million in 2019, before a sale in 2020 to Everton to join old boss Ancelotti. Take Fabian Ruiz, crusher of our UEFA Champions League dreams. 30 million exactly from Betis, goes on to PSG, peak market value of 60 million. Proper player. Jens Kajuste, I thought was one of Ipswich's best players in the Premier League last year, picked up recently for 11.5 million. Lobotka, picked up at a low ebb, leaving Celta Vigo for 24 million, peak value 40 million, been superb for Napoli and instrumental in their recent success. Di Lorenzo, not a midfielder, but now Napoli captain and Italy international, signed from Empoli for 9.8 million in 2019, peak market value 25 million. Frank Anguissa from Fulham in 2022, very, very good player, a mainstay for Napoli, bought at 16 million, peak market value 40 million. Now we're going back a bit, but Miceli was still there. Jorginho for 9.5 million from Hellas Verona in 2014. Dries Mertens, Napoli's all-time top goal scorer, 9.48 million from PSV. But more recently, one to keep an eye on with Gabriel-esque qualities is Nathan at Real Betis. They bought him in from Red Bull Bragantino and sold him on, but he's doubled his market value, and there's lots of interest from the Premier League after some excellent La Liga performances, so one to watch next summer. Others yet to work out, but I suspect probably will, are the likes of the excellent Noah Lang, who they bought from PSV last summer. I think Billy Gilmore at 14 million euros is an excellent pickup. They have ex-Evertonian Jesper Lindstrom, who I think is a brilliant player, and Miguel Gutierrez, ex-Real Madrid fullback, who I also rate. And it's also worth saying that there's been other talent in that bracket that isn't as sort of financially successful or prestigious, but has still worked. For example, Tanguy Ndombele took him on loan, he made 40 appearances and won the title, then went off to another club. I would call that recruitment success, even if we're not all sat here going, wow, that year, Tanguy Ndombele won the league with Napoli. Napoli not selling players at the right time or necessarily extracting value has been a problem, but that's a different conversation. Finding players in that bracket, really consistent. And again, look at where a lot of these guys go if they do move. PSG, Atletico, Bayern, Chelsea, big Premier League clubs. In terms of purchase value to current market value, Napoli have a 22.7% value added to their squad, according to Transfermarkt, which is obviously harder the more money that you spend, and it's a better record than AC Milan and Juventus, the clubs they compete with, albeit behind Inter Milan. They've had some stinkers in this bracket. Every club does. You can go through the list and point out players that didn't work out, absolutely. But what you'll find is a lot of them are 5 million euros and they're sold for 6 next summer. And again, correlation isn't causation, but while Miceli has been there, they've tended to do well. Ultimately, their trophy cabinet holds 2 league titles in the last 3 years with 2 different coaches, which speaks to a very well-assembled group of players. They're only the 4th biggest spenders in Italy during Miceli's second spell, and they're the 17th in Europe since 15-16, behind, hilariously, West Ham United. So that's all lovely. Well done, Napoli. What's the relevance for us? I look at the transfers at Arsenal recently, and I in no way want to suggest that we have a bad record. We do not. Generally, it's been really good. But there is a gap, and the gap is the market that Miceli has thrived in. That sub 30 million euro market. And I think to establish ourselves as a super club now, if we want to do that, we have to be active in every corner of the market. We've had success recently when we've gone big. Rice, White, Calafiori, I would argue now, Zubimendi, and so on. But under Arteta, if I'm listing permanent, clever punts, careful, that Arsenal have made, so I don't mean a second choice goalkeeper or a 200k on a youth product or whatever it might be, or even experienced squad fillers like a Norgard. I'm talking those players that we look at and we go, okay, you're not top of the market, but you're interesting. Then I would say the smart pickup type signings at Arsenal under Arteta have been as follows. In reverse order, under 30 million euros, Christian Mosquera at 15 million euros. Major hit so far. Then I think you have to go back to Leandro Trossard at 24 million and Jakub Kiwior at 19.5 million in January 2023. If I'm being harsh, Trossard felt less of a talent spot and more of a pivot from Mr. Roadrunner, and Kiwior was briefly brilliant, but is ultimately out on loan. Summer 2022, you had Marquinhos at 3.5 million. I'm not counting Matt Turner. Didn't go great. Then there was quite a few in that 2021 summer, although smart pickup is hard because I think a few of these were first teamers. Ramsdale at 28 million, Tomiyasu at 18.6 million, Sambi at 17.5 million, and Nuno Tavares at 8 million. Ultimately, none of them are still at the club, and we sold none of them for a profit. Then you're back in 2020. Gabriel, major hit at 26 million, Pablo Mari at 6 million, Cedric, Willian on a free, Runarsson for 2 million. I prefer not to speak. There's two, I would argue, hits in there. Certainly Gabriel, probably Trossard, and you could probably even sneak Mosquera in there, although it's probably a bit early. But it's not an amazing record in that area of the market. And as I say, this sort of spotting uncovered value doesn't really wash for me when we're signing Tomiyasu to play in the first team. In essence, we don't do it a lot. And when we do it, we don't have that much success. Not to say we don't have any, but I think there's space to grow. Look, we're Arsenal. People will be asking us for more money because we're in the Premier League. Our major investments have largely done well. And let's be clear, our job is not to be Brentford or Brighton and outsmart the market, frankly, because we don't always need to. But I see the next step for Arsenal. And I see deals being done, and I just think, could we have been a part of that? Sfere Naipan seemed like one of those deals. Couldn't quite get that over the line. Nordi Mukiele this summer, that price is a crazy deal. Looking back, and I know this is probably unfair, but Mateta for 11 million euros. Let's look right now across the Premier League. Robin Ruffs, one of the best young goalkeepers in the league, 10.5 million euros. Milosavljevic, the centre-back at Bournemouth, I'm having a stinker today, and Truffert, both looking excellent, 15 million and 13.5 million respectively. Coyote, that kid with the ridiculous long throw-in at Brentford, 17.5 million. De Kuyper, player I've always rated at Brighton, 20 million, and he'll go for a lot more. It's not about doing deals for the sake of it or hoovering up talent like Chelsea. Ultimately, a club only has a certain amount of bandwidth. And it's all very well in hindsight going, I should have done that deal when Mateta turns out the way he has. It's just asking, are we doing enough of those deals? And do we need to be in that market? And I would argue, yes. It is odd that a club of Arsenal's size has basically got two of those punts absolutely right in the manager's tenure, but more broadly has done so very few and got so very few right in the last 15, 20 years. Guendouzi, 8 million. There was a moment, just didn't happen. Callum Chambers, Takuma Asano, Rob Holding was only a couple mil. I mean, Martinelli at 7 million is the standout, of course, but I can't think of many others. And I come back to the idea of the next step. Because when you're in a rebuild, you have to be selective about where you're looking in the market, of course. You have to rein in your vision to a core group of players to fit your identity, fit your style, all that stuff. But we're now in an incredibly healthy position. Large portions of our squad are at the right ages, tied down to long-term deals, and we have all types of profiles. We can afford to be a little bit more adventurous, a little bit more risky in how we recruit. Even looking at the January market, what opportunities might come up. If Christian Mosquera is anything to go by, taking risks sometimes pay off. I think we could get 70 mil for him in January. Hands off. And again, it's crucial to this next step, I think. Over the years, City, Madrid, Bayern, the biggest established clubs do these deals alongside the kind of guaranteed first team bangs. And not only is it at times a dream way of finding players who can play in the first team, but managed correctly, it's a surefire way of making a bit of extra money. Last few years, City have done Juma Bar, Vitor Reis, Sfere Naipan, Claudio Echeverri, Sergio Gomez, and more. Jan Couto and Maximo Perrone leave Man City for a combined 33 million euros last summer. I can't remember a single moment of either of them in a Man City shirt. Based on Michele's record at Napoli and his reputation for unearthing players in this kind of bracket, while of course we have to be cautious, with an expanded team and reach, more budget to account for the inflated prices, more influence, more pull at a club like Arsenal, I'd say I'm pretty sure we're looking at this area of the market, and I'm cautiously optimistic that Michele, especially a bigger club, can help us. But are we sure Michele is the right man? Is he really the mastermind behind all of this, or are Napoli just really well run? I'm sure he was in some of these conversations, but it takes a team. However, as William Shakespeare once said, by my quotes found through rigorous online search, judge me. What's that, Nietzsche? Michelli's a bit of a difficult man to pin down information-wise. Similar to Berta, he doesn't really speak to the media or have an online presence. So I'm largely relying on quotes around him from ages ago, or opinion pieces, or dodgy long reads on fan websites, pulling from sources I just get the vibe not to trust. I bow to the analysis of Maurizio Michelli, who for me is a guru in selecting knowing players, said Stefano Caira, a former Roma director, who I literally cannot find a single credible trace of online. Was mentioned in The Standard, mentioned in loads of other publications. Can't find a single link to him and Roma. Seriously, Google it now. Maybe it's me. He does have a LinkedIn page, but anyway, he apparently went on to say there isn't a single player Maurizio signs whose parents, boyfriends, and so on he doesn't know. He's a human algorithm capable of implementing this strategy for years now. The LinkedIn page says, owner of myself. But human algorithm is a good hook, no? We can confirm, though, that Fabio Mandarini in Corriere dello Sport reported that he spent around 200 days a year travelling on planes, flying to watch players before the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and he's a big proponent of using data. But also, like Berta, is said to take a keen interest in understanding a player's life off the pitch. Michelli values meeting players in person and watching players live. Further to that, according to Cronache di Spogliaccio, Michelli is described as a Zeno in spalla Itachi. I'm so sorry if you're Italian, by the way, just for this whole video. Basically, a backpack and notebook. A guy who scouts in a traditional way, watching games live, taking notes, rather than relying purely on data. But again, at one point, alongside his colleague Leonardo Mantovani, a lawyer and colleague he's known for over 30 years, Michelli was revolutionary in using satellite technology to scout lesser known or more remote leagues. And they were among the first to scout foreign leagues more systematically. And during a talk at a university, Michelli spoke about software he's helped to develop to analyse players' positional nuances. For example, the software can distinguish whether a centre-back is playing in a back four or a back three, much more granular than standard scouting tools. That's basically all the good stuff I could find. If you could find more, credit to you. So it's at this point, we have to trust Andrea Berta. We signed him. It's time for him to build his team. You can imagine they would have come across each other at Udinese and Parma and Brescia and all those places while they played each other. And one hopes that the communication between two countrymen born 4 years apart and only a few hundred kilometres away from one another would be good. But we'll have to see. Because I suspect this lack of public information is kind of semi-intentional. But it also speaks to something. Maybe I'm just reading too much into this and he's just a boomer technophobe. But he just reads like a guy who loves football and isn't that bothered about much else. From what we can tell, the hundreds of days flying around the globe, he just seems to love the game and climate change. Joking aside, he's a guy who doesn't like the limelight, doesn't want to be in pictures, doesn't want the credit, just loves football and loves knowing players. And we need that. Recently, Arsenal announced new members of the board, alongside Richard Garlick becoming CEO. There's Kelly Blaha, a finance expert, Otto Marley, a project and real estate expert, Dave Steiner, a public accounting expert, and Ben Winston, a producer and director who used to work with One Direction, all joining as non-executive directors. And that was all well and good. But part of me saw that announcement and went, yeah, there's a lot of expertise, but football people? And my KSE spidey senses started twitching a bit. So I love the sense that Michelli is another football person in the room. This is a guy who's been in the game for over 30 years, speaks multiple languages, and flies around the globe just watching games. Commenting on exact internal dynamics is tough. Maybe one of those guys on the board is a real football fiend. Maybe Otto Marley has his UEFA Pro. I don't know. But on the surface, to bring in more football experience, another football person, and a mature one at that, to add to, let's face it, still a relatively young coaching team, is a good thing. If Michelli is being brought in for the reasons we expect, I hope we can expect to see better use of the loans pathway conducted by Sam Habel. Successful loans leading to profitable sales are going to be key if this is an area Arsenal are looking at with this appointment. Although to be clear, of course, Michelli won't just focus on this. But probably the last two big successes here were Balogun's sale in 2023 and Willock's in 2022. More of those types will be welcome. All in all, recruitment is a complicated beast. Anyone who comments on internal dynamics at Arsenal without having any actual information, I'm always like, oh, I don't know. He was definitely responsible for that. You don't know, mate. But maybe what we can infer is Michelli, despite reports saying he was almost the de facto sporting director at Napoli at times, driving to the airport, meeting players, doing deals, and so on. If you look at his career moves, it seems he's never wanted that sporting director, CEO side of things. He wants to be on the ground. He just wants to find the next best players. And for where we are and where we need to go, that suits us quite nicely. Thanks so much for watching. If you like The Different Knock, you can support us on Patreon and get ad-free early access to each video for just £3 a month. Or for one-time support, you can buy us a coffee. Links are in the description.